Can you talk about the poems on verse Magnifique and the poets you've encountered there over the years?
The verse Magnifique page of Cosmoetica has mostly poets that I've known in the past. Most of them, I believe, were poets that I knew when I lived in Minneapolis. Some of them I've lost touch with. There's one poet that I have mentioned before in writing, but he was a poet I knew named Greg Clark, and I've told Jessica too that he was, after myself, probably the best poet I've ever known personally. Uh, in the 4 or 5 years I knew him in the 1990s, I'd say he probably had 15 to 20 great poems, which is a shows that he wasn't just aiming darts. He wrote mostly lyrical poems, a lot of love poems, but he did also move beyond things like that. He had a limited style, uh, in a sense, but he was totally unique. He was like Bruce Ario with his Arios, although he was more consistent than Bruce. He had he was I'd met him at this poetry group in Minnesota. He stopped going to that group after they kicked me out, and he then moved to Australia for a year or two to be with some woman. When he came back, we met. I think Jessica met him one time when we first started going out, and I haven't been able to find him online in the 15 years since. I've got I've had a thing up there about MIA poets and whatnot, and some of the people there I have found and looked up and found, but they've moved on. A lot of them have moved into like unfortunate positions in their life. I won't go into any further details, but Greg Clark is one of those poets that I would love if if anyone who knew or knows Greg Clark, who was in a Minnesota poet in the Twin Cities in the early to mid 19 or the mid 1990s, contact me or contact him. Let me know where he is, or tell him to look at these videos and get in contact with me, because he is someone like Bruce Ario or like George Dickerson's career or like the poems of James Emmanuel that I would like to get, a good dozen or so of his best poems and put them online. Because it's ridiculous that he doesn't have a presence, because uh, hopefully if he progressed or at least maintained what he was doing, hopefully he might have 40 or 50 or 60 great poems by now, which would make him one of the greatest poets uh, uh, in uh, in the world history. Maybe he gave up poetry. I don't know, but uh, so he's the most extreme example. There are a few other people up there that I'd like to be in contact with, but those are most of the people on the Verse Magnifique. I have the Uptown Poetry Group people on their own separate page, um, so I don't count them in that page. I think there probably are a handful of other poets outside of Minnesota that submitted stuff to me here or there, but um, some of them wrote some good stuff to very good stuff. But Greg Clark is the standout there, and hopefully he's still alive out there.